Progress is not a coincidence, it's a consequence. It's not something that just happens because you wish for it or wait for it. Progress is the result of intentional action aligned with divine purpose. But along the path of growth, there are enemies, silent, subtle, and strategic enemies that work tirelessly to keep you from becoming everything you were created to be. These enemies don't attack your body first, they attack your belief, your focus, and your consistency. The real war of progress is not fought on the outside, it's fought in the mind and in the heart. And until you identify these enemies and confront them, you will continue to fight battles you were never meant to lose. The first enemy of progress is comfort. Comfort is the silent killer of destiny because it feels so safe, so reasonable, and so harmless. Comfort says, you've done enough, you deserve to rest, but rest without purpose becomes laziness in disguise. Comfort is deceptive because it convinces you to stop when you should still be moving. It's the warm blanket that keeps you asleep when the alarm clock of purpose is ringing. The moment you choose comfort over calling, you trade your potential for pleasure. Growth is uncomfortable, change is inconvenient, and faith will always stretch you. But every time you step out of the familiar, you step into the supernatural. Comfort makes you settle, but progress demands that you stretch. Nothing great has ever been achieved from the couch of convenience. It's always been birthed in the tension between discomfort and desire. So when life challenges you, don't run back to comfort. Lean into the pressure because diamonds are made there. The second enemy of progress is doubt. Doubt doesn't just whisper, it questions your identity. It asks, who do you think you are? Doubt doesn't need to destroy your dream. It only needs to delay it long enough for you to give up on it. When doubt enters the heart, faith exits quietly. The problem with doubt is that it makes you forget what God has already brought you through. It makes you believe the evidence of your eyes instead of the truth of your spirit. You can't move forward doubting your worth. You can't manifest greatness while questioning if you belong. Every giant you face in life will use doubt as its first weapon, but remember this, the battle is not between you and the giant, it's between your faith and your fear. And whichever you feed will win. When you doubt yourself, you disconnect from your divine assignment. You stop dreaming, you stop building, you stop believing. And when belief dies, progress dies with it. The cure to doubt is decision. Deciding to trust the promise more than the problem. Deciding to walk by faith even when you can't see the outcome. The third enemy of progress is distraction. Distraction doesn't destroy you, it delays you. It makes you busy but never productive. In this noisy world, you can be constantly active and still make no advancement. Distraction steals your focus by giving you something to do that doesn't take you anywhere. It's the subtle art of keeping you entertained while your destiny expires. You start your day with purpose, but one scroll, one notification, one comparison, and suddenly your momentum is gone. Progress demands focus, and focus requires discipline. When you lose focus, you start chasing things that have nothing to do with your purpose. Distraction doesn't always come from the devil. Sometimes it comes disguised as opportunity. Just because something is good doesn't mean it's God. You must learn to say no to what's urgent so you can say yes to what's important. Protect your focus like a treasure because wherever your focus goes, your future flows. The moment you master your attention, you master your advancement. Fourth enemy of progress is fear. Fear is a liar dressed in logic. It always sounds reasonable. Fear says, what if you fail? What if they laugh at you? What if it doesn't work? But faith asks, what if you fly? Fear paralyzes motion. It traps you in the land of hesitation. It's the false prophet that predicts failure before it even happens. Fear and faith cannot occupy the same space. One has to leave. Every great calling requires courage, and courage is not the absence of fear, it's the decision to move anyway. When fear speaks, it tries to remind you of your past, but faith reminds you of your potential. You were not created to live small, you were created to dominate. And domination doesn't come by avoiding fear, it comes by confronting it. The same fear that tries to stop you is proof that you're standing at the door of something significant. Don't run from it, face it, because on the other side of fear is freedom. And until you confront what you fear, you will remain trapped by what you tolerate. The fifth enemy of progress is excuses. Excuses are the language of the limited. They give you permission to stay the same. Excuses sound like, I don't have time, I don't have resources, I don't know how. But the truth is, the problem is never the lack of resources, it's the lack of resourcefulness. When you make an excuse, you are literally arguing for your limitations. You're saying, I can't because, instead of I will until. Excuses protect your comfort, justify your fear, and delay your destiny. Every time you say, I can't, you close the door on what's possible. The people who make progress in life aren't the ones who have the most advantages. They're the ones who have the fewest excuses. Excuses turn potential into procrastination. They make you sound wise while you're wasting time. If you want to move forward, stop explaining your limitations and start expanding your possibilities. You don't need to have it all figured out to start. You just need to start. Once you've identified these enemies, comfort, doubt, distraction, fear, and excuses, you must develop a strategy to defeat them. Awareness is the first step. You cannot change what you will not confront, and you cannot confront what you refuse to see. Awareness brings clarity. It exposes the areas of your life where progress has been hijacked. But awareness alone isn't enough. You must align. Alignment means bringing your thoughts, words, and actions into agreement with your purpose. It means eliminating anything that doesn't serve your future. When your alignment is right, even small actions create massive results. But alignment without action is just philosophy. So after awareness and alignment comes action, the evidence of belief. Progress is not produced by potential, it's produced by movement. You can pray for change, but you must also act on it. Faith without action is frustration in disguise. Every person who's ever made meaningful progress had to confront these same enemies. The difference between those who grow and those who don't isn't intelligence or opportunity, it's resistance. Some people resist the enemy, others reason with it. The ones who progress refuse to make peace with anything that keeps them small. They understand that purpose requires a price and progress demands persistence. The greatest tragedy is not to fail, it's to never move because you are afraid to try. So today, make a decision. Refuse to let comfort seduce you, doubt deceive you, distraction derail you, fear paralyze you, or excuses imprison you. Your destiny is waiting, but it won't wait forever. You have been given the power to choose. Choose progress over passivity. Choose growth over comfort. Choose faith over fear. Because the only limit that truly exists is the one you choose to live with. The moment you decide to conquer the enemies within, nothing outside can stop you. Progress is not a mystery. It's a mindset. And once your mind is free, your life will follow. Comfort is one of the most dangerous enemies of progress because it never looks like an enemy. It feels gentle, safe, and even logical. Comfort convinces you that you've earned the right to slow down, that you've done enough, that you can coast for a while. But the truth is, comfort is the silent killer of destiny because it dulls your hunger for growth. It whispers, you're fine where you are, while your potential is crying out for more. Comfort is seductive. It doesn't destroy you overnight. It does it gradually, quietly, over time. It makes you trade purpose for pleasure and progress for peace of mind. You start saying things like, I'll start tomorrow, and before you know it, tomorrow turns into 10 years. Every great calling requires you to step into discomfort. Growth and comfort cannot coexist. One must die for the other to live. When you choose comfort, you choose stagnation. You stop stretching, stop reaching, stop believing that more is possible. And the tragedy of comfort is that it makes failure feel acceptable because it replaces passion with apathy. The comfort zone is where dreams decay, potential sleeps, and purpose starves. It's where people stop living and start existing. Comfort tells you that staying safe is wisdom, but often it's fear disguised as logic. Comfort says, don't take the risk, you might lose. But purpose says, if you don't, you'll never win. Everything you want in life, growth, wealth, peace, purpose, exists outside your comfort zone. That's why discomfort isn't your enemy, it's your invitation. The pain of progress is temporary, but the pain of comfort lasts a lifetime. You must learn to be uncomfortable with comfort and comfortable with discomfort. Because once you make peace with being stretched, you unlock a level of strength and creativity that the comfortable will never know. God didn't create you to be average, and average people are only born from comfortable lives. The soil of destiny is tilled through challenge, discipline, and faith. Every champion, every visionary, every world changer had to walk through the valley of discomfort to reach the mountain of purpose. So, when you feel that pull to settle, resist it. When you feel the temptation to take it easy, remind yourself that your future depends on what you do now. Comfort will give you a temporary feeling of peace, but progress will give you permanent fulfillment. Don't let comfort rob you of the greatness waiting on the other side of effort. The moment you choose discomfort for the sake of destiny, you shift from existing to evolving, and that shift is the beginning of unstoppable progress. Doubt is one of the most destructive forces that can ever invade a person's mind because it doesn't attack your resources. It attacks your belief. It doesn't tell you that your dream is impossible. It convinces you that you are not enough to achieve it. Doubt is the dream destroyer because it makes you question the very thing that gives birth to progress. Faith. Faith builds, but doubt breaks. Faith moves mountains, but doubt builds walls. The most dangerous part about doubt is that it sounds rational. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It says things like, maybe this isn't for you. Or, what if you fail again? And before you realize it, you're no longer walking by faith. You're walking by fear disguised as wisdom. Doubt always comes dressed in evidence. It will point to your past, failures, your current limitations, and the opinions of others to make you believe that your dream isn't realistic. But what doubt never tells you is that every person who ever did something great faced the same uncertainty. The difference is they acted in spite of it. Doubt only has power when you give it permission to stay. The moment you start believing your doubts more than your dreams, you begin to shrink your vision to fit your comfort zone. You stop expecting, you stop creating, and eventually you stop moving. Doubt doesn't need to destroy your dream. It just needs to delay it until you give up. When doubt enters your heart, it becomes the seed of hesitation, and hesitation kills momentum. Momentum is what keeps faith alive. You can't expect to build a life of progress while constantly questioning the foundation you're building on. Doubt paralyzes the mind and poisons the spirit. It keeps you trapped between what you know and what you fear. And that's where most people live, stuck in the middle of I wish and I could have. But that middle ground is where dreams die quietly. The truth is, doubt can't stop you unless you agree with it. You have the power to reject its lies by remembering what you've already overcome. Every challenge you've faced, every obstacle you've conquered, every door that opened when it shouldn't have. All of it is proof that you are equipped for the next level. Doubt may question your ability, but faith confirms your identity. You were never meant to move by sight alone. You were meant to move by conviction. The vision inside you doesn't need everyone's approval. It needs your belief. When you silence doubt with decision, you step back into power. Decision is the antidote to hesitation. Decide that you are enough. Decide that you are capable. Decide that no matter what it looks like, the dream within you is worth the fight. Because once you stop doubting worth, you stop delaying your destiny. Progress begins the moment you replace doubt with determination. And when you do, the same voice that once said, you can't, will one day whisper, you did. Distraction is one of the most subtle yet powerful enemies of progress because it doesn't look like destruction. It looks like activity. It makes you feel busy but not productive. It convinces you that motion is progress when in reality, it's just movement without meaning. Distraction steals your time, your energy, and your attention, which are the very currencies of destiny. It doesn't always show up as something bad. Sometimes it shows up as something good that isn't God. You can spend years chasing things that look right but aren't aligned with your purpose. And when you finally stop, you realize you've been running in circles. The tragedy of distraction is that it keeps you working hard on the wrong things. You can be diligent, disciplined, and determined, but if you're focused on the wrong target, you'll still end up empty. Distraction doesn't need to destroy your dream, it just needs to divide your focus. Because divided focus always leads to delayed progress. Every time you lose focus, you lose force. You can't build momentum when your attention is scattered in 1,000 directions. The mind that can't concentrate can't create. Focus is the birthplace of excellence, and distraction is its assassin. In today's world, distraction is everywhere. It's in your phone, your habits, your conversations, even in the opinions of others. It's easy to get caught up comparing your journey to someone else's highlight reel. But comparison is the cousin of distraction. It keeps your eyes on what they're doing instead of what you're called to do. You can't walk your path while staring at theirs. Every time you look away from your purpose, you delay your progress. The enemy doesn't need to stop you. He just needs to keep you busy with what doesn't matter. Focus is the filter of destiny. It's what separates those who wish from those who win. When you master focus, you turn small efforts into significant results. When you lose focus, even great potential becomes wasted energy. Distraction will always offer you comfort in exchange for commitment. It will say, you've got time, or just take a break, but every moment spent unfocused is a moment stolen from your future. You must learn to protect your focus like your life depends on it, because it does. Progress requires tunnel vision. You have to be so locked in on your purpose that you become immune to noise. Not every opportunity is your assignment. Not every invitation deserves your attention. Sometimes elevation requires elimination, removing the things that are good so you can focus on what's great. When you eliminate distractions, clarity returns. And where there is clarity, there is confidence. The power to progress is not in doing more, it's in doing what matters most. A distracted mind produces an average life, but a focused mind produces a fulfilled one. So guard your focus, because wherever your focus goes, your future flows. The moment you reclaim your attention, you reclaim your advancement. And when you master the art of focus, distraction loses its power and destiny begins to accelerate. Fear is one of the most deceptive enemies of progress because it presents itself as protection when in reality, it's a prison. Fear is the false prophet of failure. It predicts outcomes that don't exist. It declares defeat before the battle even begins. And it convinces you that safety is smarter than faith. Fear doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers. It whispers, what if you fail? What if they reject you? What if you're not enough? And before you take your first step, you've already talked yourself out of trying. That's the danger of fear. It stops you before life even has a chance to test you. Fear feeds on imagination. It uses your creative power against you. The same imagination that can see a vision of greatness can also create visions of disaster. Fear doesn't live in reality. It lives in possibility. The possibility of what could go wrong. It paints pictures in your mind and makes them look like truth. But fear is a liar, and its greatest weapon is deception. It convinces you that stepping forward will hurt more than standing still. Yet what fear never tells you is that standing still slowly kills your purpose. You think you're being cautious, but you're actually being controlled. Every dream that ever died didn't die because it was impossible. It died because fear made someone believe it was. Fear has kept more people in mediocrity than failure ever has. Failure at least teaches you something, but fear teaches you nothing. It only paralyzes you. Fear says, wait until it's safe, but faith says, move and safety will find you. Progress doesn't come from waiting until you stop being afraid. It comes from moving while you're afraid. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's mastery over it. Courage is the decision to trust your purpose more than your panic. Fear disguises itself as logic. It makes you overthink, overanalyze, and underact. It tells you to wait for the perfect time, but the perfect time never comes. Fear and faith cannot occupy the same space. One has to leave. You have to decide which voice you'll listen to. Fear shows you the mountain and tells you it's too high. Faith looks at the same mountain and says, with every step I'll climb. Fear focuses on what could go wrong. Faith focuses on what God can make right. The truth is, the presence of fear doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. But letting fear dictate your decisions will make you live a life smaller than your potential. You must confront fear, not avoid it. The only way to silence fear is through movement. Every step you take in spite of fear weakens its grip. The breakthrough you've been praying for is often on the other side of the thing you're afraid to do. Fear is loud before obedience, but it becomes silent after victory. The moment you act in faith, fear loses its authority. Don't let fear write your story. Don't let it convince you that your limitations are permanent. You were not created to live beneath your potential. You were created to dominate, to multiply, to lead. And the only thing standing between where you are and where you're called to be is a decision. A decision to believe that fear has no final say. When you silence the false prophet of failure, you start hearing the voice of purpose. And that voice will always tell you the truth. that you were born for more, that you're equipped for the battle, and that fear was never meant to be your master. It was meant to be your test. Excuses are one of the most poisonous habits that kill progress because they sound so reasonable, so justified, so convincing. Excuses are the language of the limited. They give your mind permission to stay the same while pretending you're trying to change. Every excuse you make builds a wall between where you are and where you want to be. Excuses don't come from weakness. They come from unwillingness. They protect your comfort zone, defend your fears, and justify your lack of action. They say things like, I don't have enough time, I don't have the right connections, or I don't know how. But here's the truth. No one ever had all the time, all the money, or all the answers. They just decided to start anyway. Excuses are deceptive because they sound like wisdom. They sound like good reasons when they're really just well-crafted lies that keep you small. They're the stories we tell ourselves to make peace with mediocrity. Every time you make an excuse, you choose to be a prisoner when you were designed to be a producer. The more you repeat your excuses, the more you believe them, until eventually you start defending your limitations instead of destroying them. That's how people get stuck for years, not because they lack potential, but because they become fluent in the language of limitation. You can't make progress and make excuses at the same time. One will always cancel out the other. Excuses delay your destiny while convincing you that you're being patient. They make you feel safe, but they secretly steal your power. When you say, I can't, what you really mean is, I won't, because somewhere deep inside you know you could if you were willing to pay the price. And that's what separates dreamers from doers. The doers don't wait for perfect conditions, they create them. Every excuse you make takes energy, and every bit of that energy could be used to create a solution instead. The most successful people aren't the ones with fewer problems. They're the ones with fewer excuses. They understand that results come from responsibility. Excuses say, it's not my fault, but responsibility says, it's still my problem. When you take responsibility, you take back your power. You stop waiting for external change and start becoming the change. Excuses are like weeds in the garden of destiny. If you don't pull them out, they'll choke your growth. The moment you stop defending your limitations, you start discovering your potential. Progress begins where excuses end. You can either keep explaining why you're not winning, or you can start doing what winners do. The choice is always yours. So stop saying, I can't, and start saying, I will. Stop saying, I don't know how. Start saying, I'll find out. Stop saying, I don't have enough, and start using what you do have. Because once you decide that your dream is non-negotiable, your excuses lose their voice. The difference between success and stagnation isn't luck, it's language. Those who succeed speak the language of possibility, not limitation. And when you change your language, you change your life. Awareness, alignment, and action, these three form the sacred pathway to progress and victory. Without them, you will live reacting to life instead of creating it. Awareness is the beginning of transformation. You cannot change what you cannot see, and you cannot conquer what you refuse to confront. Awareness is the light that exposes the hidden enemies within: comfort, doubt, distraction, fear, and excuses. It helps you recognize where your energy is being drained, where your habits are sabotaging you, and where your mindset is limiting you. Most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they lack awareness. They keep fighting the wrong battles, blaming everything outside, while the real war is happening within. Awareness is the mirror that reveals truth, and truth is the first step to freedom. But awareness alone isn't enough. You can know everything that's wrong and still stay stuck if your life isn't in alignment. Alignment means bringing your thoughts, words, and actions into agreement with your divine purpose. It's about matching your outer behavior with your inner belief. You can't say you want to grow while continuing to entertain habits that keep you small. You can't speak about faith while feeding fear. Alignment is when your intention and your execution finally meet. When your values, your vision, and your daily actions are moving in the same direction, you become unstoppable. Life responds to order, not confusion. When your heart, your mind, and your actions are aligned with purpose, doors begin to open effortlessly. It's not because life suddenly got easier, it's because you got aligned. Alignment is about saying no as much as it's about saying yes. You have to eliminate the distractions, the relationships, the thoughts, and the environments that don't serve where you're going. You can't keep trying to walk in purpose while surrounded by things that pull you backward. Alignment requires discipline. because it demands that you stop negotiating with your old self. The moment you get serious about your alignment, progress accelerates. You begin to notice that the things that used to drain you lose their power because your focus is fixed and your direction is clear. Then comes the final stage, action. Awareness gives you clarity. Alignment gives you power, but only action gives you results. Knowledge without movement is just potential disguised as wisdom. You can pray, plan, and prepare all you want, but if you never act, nothing changes. Faith without action is frustration in disguise. Every dream requires a step. Every promise requires pursuit. Action is how you tell life you're serious. When you act, you activate possibilities that were invisible when you were just thinking. Movement attracts momentum, and momentum multiplies results. You don't have to have it all figured out to start. You just have to start with what you have. Action breaks fear. Action silences doubt. Action turns intention into impact. The people who achieve victory are not the ones who never fail. They're the ones who refuse to stop moving. Every step forward, no matter how small, is progress. The moment you move, you signal to heaven that you're ready for increase. So if you truly want victory, live in awareness, walk in alignment, and move in action. These three principles are not just strategies, they are laws of progress. Awareness awakens your potential. Alignment channels your energy. Action manifests your destiny. And when these three unite, no obstacle can stop your momentum, because victory is not something you wait for, it's something you walk into. Progress is not a mystery. It is the reward of those who are willing to fight the enemies within. Every step toward growth requires courage, clarity, and conviction. You cannot conquer what you're not willing to confront, and you cannot rise while holding on to what keeps you low. The 5 enemies of progress, comfort, doubt, distraction, fear, and excuses, are not outside forces. They are internal voices trying to negotiate your destiny. They whisper reasons to stay the same, but destiny calls you to rise. And the moment you silence those voices with awareness, alignment, and action, everything begins to shift. Your comfort zone will always promise safety, but it will never produce greatness. Doubt will always question your worth, but your faith must answer louder. Distraction will always compete for your attention, but your purpose deserves your full focus. Fear will always paint pictures of failure, but courage must hold the brush. Excuses will always sound logical, but progress has no language for limitation. The power to move forward has always been inside you. It's been waiting for a decision, not permission. You were not created to live a life of limitation. You were created to walk in purpose, power, and progress. The same God who gave you a dream also gave you the ability to fulfill it, but he won't move until you do. So stop waiting for everything to be perfect. Stop waiting for the fear to fade, the doubt to disappear, the conditions to align. Start where you are, use what you have, and trust that every step forward draws you closer to the life you were born to live. Progress is a choice, one that begins with awareness, grows through alignment, and manifests through action. The path won't always be easy, but it will always be worth it. Because once you decide that nothing within you will stop what's meant for you, every enemy of progress becomes powerless. And that's when transformation begins. Not when life gets easier, but when you get stronger. So rise up, face the enemies, and walk boldly into your future. Because progress isn't promised. It's produced by those who refuse to quit.